Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. I am your host, Stephanie, and I'm the CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly during the perimenopausal period and onwards. We know that many women will really start to struggle not only with hormonal symptoms like brain fog, irritability, hot flashes, night sweats, struggling to sleep, but during this period of their life, they also start to struggle with their weight. The old methods of eating less and cutting out your carbs and doing a ton of cardio is no longer working, and this is because your body is inherently different. So now the things that we were doing before are not going to work. We have to approach everything a little bit differently. So our mission is to teach women about how their bodies change during this period in their life so they can finally reach their health and fitness goals, live a life full of vitality, and feel in control of their body again. So today, what I want to talk about is the biggest exercise mistakes that we see women doing during perimenopause and onwards, because typically women always want to gravitate towards the high intensity exercise classes, the Orange Theory, the boot camp, doing a ton of cardio. All of these things that they used to do that might have made them feel good, that might have helped with their weight loss, but now that's just not working anymore and women don't understand why. So here are the 8 top mistakes that we see women doing during perimenopause and menopause that are really actually holding them back from achieving their goals and actually leading to like muscle loss and things like that. So first, let's talk about what's actually going on during perimenopause and menopause, how to changes like muscle mass and your ability to build it and maintain it, and then what we need to do to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success. So the first thing that's really important to note is that during perimenopause and menopause, our ability to build and maintain muscle mass is going to substantially decrease. And this is all because of estrogen. Estrogen is a hormone that is important for a lot of different things, but it's actually super important for the ability to build and maintain muscle mass because it's an anabolic hormone. So what this means is that it's muscle building. It promotes muscle growth. So now when we're going through perimenopause and estrogen really starts to waver, we see estrogen starting to decrease. Now our ability to build and maintain muscle mass is going to decrease. Our body becomes more catabolic, which means muscle breakdown. It wants to use muscle for fuel, which we don't want. We want to maintain as much muscle mass as possible for a number of reasons. The first is that it keeps our metabolism up nice and high. Muscle burns a lot of calories at rest. So we want to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. We do not want to get rid of it, especially since it's harder for us to build and maintain during perimenopause and onwards. The other thing is that muscles what makes us look good. It makes us feel good. It's what keeps us looking toned, what everyone wants to look like. We're always worried about like skinny fat. That term is thrown around all the time. Being able to maintain your muscle mass is what's going to keep you looking in that toned physique that everyone's trying to get to. The other thing too is that it also helps with insulin sensitivity. So the more muscle that you have, the more area that you have for blood sugars to be shuttled to, as opposed to being stored into fat cells. So the more muscle mass you have, the more insulin sensitive you're going to be. And this is really important because we know that also as estrogen decreases, it's going to result in more insulin resistance. So we're already at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. It's also going to result in an increased risk of fat accumulation. So it's going to be harder to lose weight. Your body naturally wants to start storing fat. So making sure that you have more muscle is going to help with that as well. Not to mention that it's also really important for chronic disease prevention and things like that. So the majority of women that we work with, and we've worked with hundreds and hundreds of women at this point, is that we see women making these 8 mistakes, and it happens all of the time. And it results in you not getting the most out of your exercise routines, and actually potentially seeing a decrease in your muscle mass as opposed to trying to build muscle mass and maintain what you have. So the first mistake that we see is women don't lift heavy enough. Oh my goodness, it's time to retire those little pink baby weights. We want to challenge those muscles. So let's say you're aiming for like 8 to 12 repetitions of, let's just use bicep curls for an example. You're doing 8 to 12 repetitions. You should feel like you wouldn't be able to do more than like 14 or 15 repetitions. So if you know, which most of you can, do more than 2 pounds, 3 pounds of bicep curls more than 14 times in a row, you need to up your weights. We need an adequate enough. We need a big enough stimulus for our body to be like, oh yeah, we need to build muscle. We need a bigger threshold. We need that stimulus in order for our body to be like, hey, yeah, let's build muscle because we're using those muscles a lot. It seems like we need to get stronger because that's the signal that resistance training sends to our body, is to build muscle. So just because you're doing like a ton of repetitions, like you're basically just doing cardio with weights. So I can guarantee you with those lighter weights, you could probably do 30, 40 repetitions. Is it going to be fun? Probably not. You're going to get some muscle burn at the end and some fatigue, but it's not enough to stimulate the muscle growth, especially if you've been doing that for a really long time. So next time you go into the gym, I encourage you to just see how strong you actually are. Like, feeling strong is an amazing feeling. So try and pick up a heavier weight, see how many times you can lift it. And you're like, oh, I got to 12. Okay, I'm going to rest for a bit and I'm going to see if I can go heavier. Challenge yourself, start out slowly because it is a new stimulus, so you will get sore after, but just see how strong you are. You're going to get so much more out of your workouts and it's going to feel amazing. The second thing that we see that a lot of women make mistakes with is not giving yourself long enough rest periods. We are all guilty of this one, especially if we're going to like the boot camp classes. You're just rushing from one exercise to the next, trying to get done as quickly as possible. Your heart rate's really high. You're super sweaty, which, by the way, is not a good indication if it was a good workout or not. You don't have to be super sweaty to feel like for that workout to be good. That's not a good indication of a good workout by any means. So again, if you're going to these Orange Theory classes, if you're going to these boot camp group circuit style stuff, again, you're basically just doing cardio with weights. We need longer rest periods between our exercises. I'm talking like 2 to 3 minutes, because we want to keep our cortisol levels in check, which is huge. Stress management. Otherwise, our body, again, is going to want to burn muscle mass for fuel, which we do not want. We're already struggling with higher cortisol levels when we're going through perimenopause and menopause because that estrogen decreases. We lose that stress buffer. So now it takes a lot less stress for those cortisol levels to come up. And when cortisol is really high, that again, it creates a more catabolic environment. So it's a double whammy of too much stress and then doing not the right amount of exercise, or you're doing too much exercise, not enough rest. That's too much stress. So that's a double whammy, plus estrogen being low, of your body wanting to get rid of muscle mass. And again, we do not want that. We want to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. The other reason that it's really important to make sure that you are taking long enough rest periods is that it takes time to replenish those energy stores between sets. During perimenopause and menopause, because estrogen is decreasing, again, causing so many issues with us, and it really sucks, but unfortunately, this is just part of the process. We have a much harder time accessing energy stores because we don't have those estrogen levels to support us anymore. So you're going to find you get fatigued a lot quicker between your exercises. Like, you're only going to be able to do like, let's say you're 10 reps, the next time it's only 8 reps, things like that. It takes a lot more for your body to recover. So making sure that you're taking like the 2-minute break in between each exercise will help you be able to push yourself harder in the exercises. You're going to be able to load yourself up more, stimulate more muscle growth, and get the most out of your workouts. Because again, otherwise your gym performance just decreases and you're just not getting enough of that stimulus to help with that muscle growth. So again, we're just going to be burning more muscle, and you're not going to get that toned look. You're going to end up with that skinny fat look that everybody talks about and hates. The next thing that a lot of women do is they're not choosing the right exercises, or you're just doing them in the wrong order. So you want to focus on using your bigger muscle groups first with like multiple joints involved. So, and then work your way into smaller muscle groups or like isolation exercises. So for example, you'd want to do squats before you do like seated leg extensions, because seated leg extensions, the only thing that's moving is about the knee. Whereas in a squat, you're using your hips, you're using your knees, you're using your ankles. There's a lot more involved. Or if you're doing rows, so if you're doing cable row, that's your biceps, that's a lot of your back muscles, all those things are involved. Whereas a bicep curl is just the bicep. So you want to make sure that you are using bigger muscle groups first and then your smaller muscle groups, and using those big muscle groups. Like, a lot of people are just going straight to the seated cable machines where it's like the little circuits are already set up for you, your leg curls, your leg extensions, you have like your bicep curls, your triceps, all those things. But again, those are all single joint. Incorporate some of those bigger movements, your squats, your deadlifts, your lunges, even doing things like wall sits, your rows, your overhead presses, your bench presses. All of those exercises are going to give you so much more bang for your buck. And you don't you're just going to stimulate more muscle growth because you get an overall muscle building signal when you're using all those muscles as opposed to just like isolating something. And that's a much smaller muscle growth signal. So try and use those bigger muscle groups. Take longer rest periods because they are going to require a lot more energy. So you need that time to recover. The next one is my favorite one to talk about is that you are doing too much cardio. Cardio sends the signal to our body to become more efficient with calories, and you end up burning less calories every single time you do that exercise. So I just came up with some arbitrary numbers to try and help you make sense of this. And obviously it's not going to happen this quickly, but this is basically what's happening to your body. Let's say you're on the treadmill. You run for 10 minutes at 6 miles per hour. And let's just say this burns 150 calories. If you keep doing that, the next week that you do that, the same length of time, the same speed, the next time is only going to be 140 calories. And your body's just going to become more and more efficient. It has to do with like the muscle fiber type changes. It has to do with like fuel energy sources and how your body adapts to the stimulus that we're sending it. And the signal that we're sending to your body is to become more efficient with calories. What happens is, again, muscle burns a lot of calories at rest. It's very expensive to maintain. So the more cardio you do, your body's like, okay, we need to get rid of this muscle because like it's too expensive. It takes too much energy to complete this task. So we're going to try and get rid of it, which again, we don't want because that's already happening when we are in a high stress state. That's already happening when our estrogen is decreasing during perimenopause and menopause. So we want to make sure that we're able to maintain and build as much muscle mass as possible. So doing crazy amounts of cardio isn't going to end up with you maintaining or building muscle mass. It's going to decrease it. And again, this in the long term is going to slow down that metabolism, burning less calories at rest because you have less muscle mass. Because our body, again, is already in that catabolic muscle burning state. So cardio is just going to add to that. And we do not want that. This is why resistance training is so important. It's the signal that it sends to the body is to build muscle. Cardio tells you to get rid of muscle. Resistance training tells you to build muscle. So this is very, very important. Resistance training will do so much for you. It's the only thing that actually changes your body composition in terms of like building muscle, burning fat. Because when you do just cardio, you burn some fat, but you also burn muscle mass. So yes, this number on the scale is going to go down, but you're not going to get that toned physique that you are looking for. The next one is always working in the same rep ranges. How many of you have been doing 8 to 12 repetitions forever? Or you go to your spin class and you've done like 60 bicep curls in your spin class. You're always doing the same amount of weight and the same amount of reps. That is not sending a stimulus of change to your body at all. It already knows that it can do it. So why is it going to change? There's nothing stressing it to get better, to get stronger. So it just stays the same. So what I suggest women to do, especially if they've been working in the high rep range for a very long time, is focus on going to a smaller rep range and get stronger. This is like the best feeling. So if you've been working in the 8 to 12 rep range, switch it up, go to the 4 to 6 rep range. Pick a weight that you cannot do more than 8 repetitions in. You will be shocked at A, how much you can lift, and then B, the changes that your body is going to show. Like it's incredible. So you want to try and change that rep range like every 4 to 6 weeks. So for example, let's say you're doing 4 to 6 rep ranges, not focusing on not being able to lift those weights more than 8 times, taking that like 2 to 3 minute break in between your exercises. You're going to do that for 4 to 6 weeks. Once that's done, now we're going to up our rep range. Now we're going to aim for 8 to 12 reps. So making sure we can't lift that weight more than 14 times. You're going to do that for 4 to 6 weeks. Then you can change it up to an even higher rep range to 12 to 15. Same thing. Do that for 4 to 6 weeks. And then you can alternate between those. That way you are sending enough of a stimulus consistently for your body to get stronger in that rep range, to build more muscle. But then there's enough change happening every 4 to 6 weeks that it's a new stimulus for your body to adapt to so that you keep on changing. Our body just constantly adapts to the stimulus it's getting. So we need to change it up enough, but we need enough consistency for it to want to get stronger to do that specific thing. Okay, so now on to the next one. Completing the movements too quickly. Oh my goodness, I've seen this happen all the time in the gym, and everyone's guilty of this, not just women. I see men do it as well, where you're just like not focusing on the purpose of the exercise. You're like, I just got to get this done. I just got to get this weight from point A to point B. It doesn't matter how I do it. Wrong. So we want to make sure that we are moving with purpose. We're not just moving erratically to get it done. You want to focus on the intent of the exercise. So take a minute and ask yourself, what muscles am I supposed to be using? Where should I be feeling this? You want to focus on squeezing that muscle at the shortened range. So if you're doing a bicep curl, as you bring the weight up towards you, you should be feeling that squeeze in the bicep. Then as you're lowering the weight and the weight is coming down closer to the floor, you should not just like drop it. You're trying to maintain tension in that bicep. You're feeling that stretch, but you're controlling it on the way down. That is going to elicit so much stimulus and so much change. We actually see that the eccentric portion of a movement, so the lengthening of a muscle, but you're still controlling it, you're going to see more stimulus, more change when you train in that way. So for example, with the bicep curl, you're slowly lowering for 3 seconds, feeling that tension, feeling the stretching, controlling that movement. That is where you're going to see the most change, the most stimulus. So you don't necessarily always have to go up in weight every time. You can slow down the lengthening portion of the exercise. And again, you're going to see a lot of change there as well. That will make you more sore though. So don't do it for every single exercise. Try it out slowly, pick it for some bigger ones, see how you feel, and then like play around with that because it will make you a lot more sore compared to like going like that quicker tempo. Again, this will help you get so much more out of your workout. And you'll find it's very tiring, but you will get stronger quicker. So you really want to feel that muscle. And again, that's just going to send the right signal to the body that, okay, we need to get stronger because like that was exhausting. The other mistake that we see is working out too often. So this one might shock you. So especially during perimenopause and menopause, again, like I've talked about, your stress tolerance decreases quite a bit when your estrogen levels decrease. So now it doesn't take as much for you to get that cortisol spike, which is going to lead to a ton of issues like a decrease in thyroid function, an increase in insulin resistance, an increase in inflammation, a decrease in muscle mass, more hormonal symptoms like hot flashes, night sweats, not being able to sleep. Then you toss on the regular everyday life stresses like dog pooping on the floor, rushing your kids around, your in-laws are driving you crazy, your parents made you mad, your spouse left towels on the floor, whatever it is, kids are driving you bonkers. So you're just adding stress on top of stress on top of stress. And our body just can't handle that anymore like it used to because of that estrogen decreasing. And exercise is going to increase your cortisol levels. It is a stress. Your body doesn't care that you're doing it to try and lose weight or to try and put on muscle mass. It's still a stress. So we need to make sure that we are having enough adequate recovery. This is going to be huge. Muscles are broken down during exercise and then they repair and build when we're recovering, especially when we're sleeping. So getting enough sleep is going to be really important here for you as well. We want to make sure that we're getting enough rest time between our exercise sessions on those muscle groups to give them enough time to recover and that we're hitting our kind of at the optimal peak of when to hit that muscle group again. Because basically what happens, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can watch my hands on drawings or whatever. And if not, I apologize for anyone who's just listening to this, but you have your baseline level. When we exercise, we are going to see a decrease, like our muscle mass is going to break down. And then as we recover, that muscle mass builds up and then it goes up higher than we were at baseline. But then if we are not allowing enough time for that to come back up above baseline, then you're just hitting it again at the bottom and it's going to go down again and again and again. So you get this like zigzag line going downwards. However, if you're doing this appropriately and giving yourself enough rest time, you break it down, go below the maintenance level. It comes back up and it goes through super compensation is what we call it. It comes up above that line. And now as it starts to come back down again, we can hit that muscle group. And then when it breaks down, it'll still come back down, but it might not go down below maintenance this time. And then it'll go up. So then you get like a wavy zigzag line going up instead. That's what we want. So if you're working out every single day, you have to make sure that you have a program that accounts for that. So for example, if you're working out 3 days a week, let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that is great to do 3 full body days. Have like a lower body, like quad focused exercise, and then a hamstring and glute focused exercise. So for example, that could be a squat or a lunge paired with a deadlift or a hip thrust. Then you have an upper body push and upper body pull. So this can be a horizontal or a vertical. So a horizontal push would be like a push-up, a chest press, chest flies, thing like that. A horizontal pull would be like any kind of rowing variation. And then a vertical push would be like any kind of overhead pressing. And then a vertical pull would be like a lat pull down, a pull up, things like that, where you're bringing the weight down from overhead. So 3 days a week, 3 full body days. That's what I personally love. It gives you enough time to recover. And on those rest days, you can do some stretching, you can do some mobility, you can go do some walking, things like that, where it allows your body time to recover. If you want to work out 4 days a week, I typically recommend an upper body day, a lower body day, rest, upper body day, lower body day, 2 rest days. If you're doing 5 days a week, this can look a little bit different. You can like break up muscle groups a bit more, but typically you want to hit a muscle group twice in a week if you can, just to really optimize where we're hitting it again, so it doesn't come back down to your maintenance levels like we talked about. So if you're doing 5 days a week, I typically like to do a lower body day, an upper body push day, an upper body pull day, another lower body day, and then a mixed upper body day. And then if you were doing 6 days a week, you can do upper body push, upper body pull, a lower body day, and then push, pull, lower body day, and then a rest period. Typically for women, we need a lot more recovery when we're going through perimenopause and menopause because of that decrease in estrogen. So I always like to say less is more. You don't have to train harder, you got to train smarter. So making sure that you are really paying attention to your body. If you are really sore after, like you have trouble walking a day or two afterwards, things like that, that means you pushed yourself too hard. Being really sore is not a good indication of a good workout. Typically, it shows that you've overworked yourself. And as women, especially if you're already struggling with your sleep, you're struggling with like insulin resistance, you're not eating enough, you're not having enough carbohydrate, which is super, super important. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So you're not eating enough carbohydrates, you're not eating enough in general, you are not sleeping well, you're doing a ton of cardio, you're rushing around, high stress life, high stress job, dealing with some inflammation. All those things are just adding stress on top of stress on top of stress. Because of the lowered estrogen levels, we cannot tolerate that. So then if you're just busting your butt in the gym like crazy all the time, you're actually making things worse. We've worked with a ton of women where we've actually had them stop doing weightlifting and like exercise classes for like 4 to 6 weeks to allow their body to recover, to allow those cortisol levels to come back down. We focused on just like walking, doing things like Pilates instead, yoga, things like that, until their body is actually ready, until they're eating enough, until their sleep is better, until their energy has improved. And once those are improved, then we add the weight training in. Then women can really see like the difference and like, holy crap, I thought I was doing well in the gym before. Like, this is amazing. And now they start seeing all these results and looking good and feeling strong. And then we can go into a fat loss phase at that point. But we need to make sure that your body can actually handle the stress and stimulus from resistance training, because for a lot of women, you're not in that position. So again, if you're struggling with sleep, stress, energy, digestion, inflammation, blood sugars, crashes, cravings, doing a ton of cardio, you're in a deficit, you're not eating carbs, you may have to adjust your exercise training to accommodate for that, because your body just cannot handle it. And you might say, oh, but I feel so good after I do those like circuit trainings and those Orange Theories and all those things. No, you're just an adrenaline junkie. Your body is so addicted and used to running in fight or flight. You're addicted to the stress hormones. That's what your body is used to running on. So now you're just comfortable. You're used to it. That's what your body knows. When you come out of it, it's going to be uncomfortable to like slow down, but it's exactly what your body needs. It's what your adrenals need to kind of give them some recovery, bring those cortisol levels down, and get you into a place where your body is actually ready and you feel good, balancing out those hormones. The next one is not following a program. You want to follow a program for 4 to 6 weeks where you are basically doing the exact same exercises week to week for 4 to 6 weeks. This is progressive overload. So what we're doing is those same exercises, but every single week we're trying to lift heavier. We're trying to get stronger every single week. And some weeks you might not see your weights go up, which is fine, but maybe you slow down the motion. Maybe you're more in control. You don't feel as tired at the end, things like that. Those are all indications that your performance is getting better, or you're able to like sit deeper into a squat or things like that. So this is how our body adapts. Like, we need enough variation in every like periodization cycle. So every 4 to 6 weeks, so that your body gets a new stimulus to adapt to get stronger, to grow more muscle, all that kind of stuff. But you do need consistency week to week in order for your body to like get that same signal. And it's like, oh yeah, right. We do need to get stronger here. Oh yes, we have been using these biceps like 2 or 3 times a week, like where we're actually lifting heavier. And you're trying to lift heavier every time. Okay, like we better make these muscles stronger. We better build some more muscle mass here. That's what we want to focus on. So you do need to have some consistency week to week in your program to see change. This was the thing that changed my body the most. I used to like go in and like do different leg exercises every time I went in for a leg day or things like that. I remember when I first did my first progressive overload program, and I did it for 5 weeks, exact same exercises week to week. I got strong really fast. It was crazy. It was the first time I'd ever seen my squat really improve. And the muscle mass that I put on my butt and legs was insane. I could not believe it. And I was only working out 3 days a week. And I used to work out 6 to 7. So it was a huge mind shift. And it was stuff that I had learned in school, but I was like, I don't apply. Like, I'm special. There's no way that I apply the rules that works for those people, not me. And then you do it for yourself for the first time. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, there's a reason that people talk about this. It works. This is how the body adapts. This is how physiology works. And then for the last one, I'm going to toss in a number 9 here, is not eating pre and post workout. This is something that I always see women doing, is wanting to work out fasted because for some reason we think it's going to make us lose weight faster, which is not true at all. Especially during perimenopause and menopause. Again, we have that reduced ability to access energy stores. So having a quick snack before your workouts, it's a quick digesting carb, like some fruit, or even like some nut butter on like a rice cake, things like that with a little bit of protein. Something that's going to digest fairly quickly so that you have easily accessible sugars in your bloodstream to help you get the workout started, because it does take a while for our body to be able to access those energy stores now. So you're not going to get the most out of your workout if you aren't fueling before. It's going to give you energy to complete the entire workout, as well as keep those cortisol levels in check, because we know they are elevated during perimenopause and menopause. Making sure that you have a snack after your workouts, super, super important, because as we become more insulin resistant during perimenopause and menopause, we have a harder time opening the cell doors to allow blood sugars to shuttle in there into muscle, as opposed to being stored into fat cells. So when we exercise, it actually helps stimulate the opening of those cells. So it's a great time to get those carbohydrates in, to shuttle them into our muscle cells for storage of energy there and for recovery, as opposed to getting it shuttled into fat mass later. The other thing too, that it's really important to have carbs and protein after your workouts, is that it helps bring your cortisol levels down. Again, we know as cortisol levels are really high, it has negative side effects for your thyroid, your metabolism, inflammation, insulin resistance. There are so many things that it just ends up being a vicious cycle if cortisol stays high. Exercise does increase cortisol, so we need to bring that down post-exercise, and carbohydrates help keep our cortisol levels in check. So making sure that you're having that carbohydrate after your workout is huge. Make sure you're pairing it with a protein as well to help stabilize blood sugars, and also help with muscle recovery as well. But having that pre and post workout snack is so essential for not only hormone health, but for you getting the most out of your workouts. So I hope that you found all this helpful. I'm going to just quickly go through those points again. The first mistake we see is women not lifting heavy enough. The second is not giving yourself long enough rest times. The third was choosing the wrong exercises or the order. 4 was doing too much cardio. 5 was always working in the same rep ranges. 6 was completing your movements too quickly without intention. 7 is working out too often and not giving yourself enough recovery between your workout sessions. 8 is not following a progressive overload program. You're changing up your exercises too much. And then 9 was not having a pre and post workout snack. I know a lot of women are like, oh, there's quite a few things here that I'm not doing. So try and change those things. Pick 1 or 2 to really focus on before you start going to the next one. But it can make a huge, huge difference for you. We do have a progressive overload program. If that's something that you're interested in, I will post the details and in the show notes below. And again, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you know how to contact me. Information is in the show notes as well. I'm always happy to help people calculate their calories, their macros, and just help them figure out where they're going wrong. And until next time, Talk to you all soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day.